Hey guys, I am here for Mobile Mondays on very short notice, so hopefully it will be exciting for everybody. Anybody that hops on, I'm going to share my top 10 takeaways from being at Inman Connect last week, which was really cool. Probably one of the better events throughout the industry. We got tons of inspiration from both inside and outside the industry, and I have so many more than 10 takeaways, but I figure I can't be on Facebook Live all day. So anything that you guys want to share, I want to get the conversation going and talk more with each and every one of you. So feel free to shoot a comment in the comment section there, and I'll do my best to read along. So my first takeaway was from Scott Stratton, who is he has a bunch of podcasts and books, and he's all about marketing, or what he calls unmarketing. He feels like marketing has gotten so brainwashed into the realtors and even other industries, just putting their face everywhere and making it all about them instead of about the people that they serve. So one thing that he shared was, he said, if you have to tell people that you're blank, and I'll explain that in a second, you probably aren't. So the example that he used is, if you have to tell people that you're active in your community, you're probably not that active in your community, because if you are truly active in your community, people know that without you telling them, which I thought was really a good point. In real estate, we do that so much. And in real estate, we also say, I'm such a neighborhood expert and these are the reasons why. And I think it forced me to kind of reflect back at, listing presentations, working with buyers. If you're really showcasing your knowledge about whatever it is that you are showcasing. So for instance, if you're a neighborhood expert, if you can really speak to the market in that neighborhood, you shouldn't have to tell people you're a neighborhood expert. Your knowledge is showcasing it. So I thought that was like probably my top takeaway. And these are in no particular order. So if you have any questions, again, please comment below. I'd love to hear more from you guys. So the second one was from a presentation by Charlie Young from Coldwell Banker called The Empowered Agent. And essentially, my big takeaway from his presentation was, use the resources that you have available to you. So whether that's data, so use data when you're talking to your clients. A lot of people, say, data is kind of they can get everything that they want online, but the truth is they really can't. They can't get everything that they want online because agents are still relevant. So use the data that you have at your disposal and help provide insight into that data. So what does days on market mean? What does shifting prices mean? Things like that. I think that's really helpful for the consumers. Another thing that you can use, obviously, is social media, the way that we are right now, to connect to consumers, and obviously your community. So a lot of us are so focused on what's next and the innovation happening in the industry, and we forget to use the things that we have at our disposal. So he really encouraged us not to forget those things and not to just ignore them and think about what's next, but rather focus on what's happening right now. So I love that point. And then the next one, again, is a Scott Stratton point, which I thought was a really good point. And he talks about doing things worth talking about. So I'm going to share the story that he did because I think he says it better than I ever could, which no one should be shocked by that. He is, after all, a paid speaker. So he tells a story where he puts up the brand logo of the Ritz-Carlton, which is a lion. You guys can Google it. It's really nothing remarkable. And then he puts up a picture of a stuffed animal, I think it was a giraffe, named Joshy. And he tells the story of how he took a family vacation, and when they took the family vacation, somehow Joshy got left behind, and they got home, and he jokes that he did what any father would, and he lied to his child that, no, Joshy did not get lost. Joshy is going on an extended vacation, so he's staying another week. So all that he had really done is bought himself a week, and he shares that he called the Ritz-Carlton back and he said, my child lost his stuffed animal, and they were able to identify it. Someone in the laundry had found it and given it to the front desk. And that may seem kind of not all that shocking. I mean, they are a hotel. There are lost and founds in just about any large hotel. But what happened next was truly remarkable. What happened next was, not only did they take Joshy, this stuffed animal, and overnight him back to Scott and his family, at no charge to him, by the way. They took the steps of taking pictures of Joshy working in the laundry room, taking pictures of him out by the pool. They even printed him a small laminated name badge of him working at the Ritz-Carlton and sent those photos along with Joshy back to Scott and his family. And to me, what is so remarkable about that is it's something simple. They could have solved the problem, and by solving the problem, they merely would have met Scott's expectation that, okay, we lost this, I hope they can get it back, and they solved the problem. And he probably wouldn't have said anything about them. But now, every time he sees that Ritz-Carlton logo, he thinks of Joshy, and he thinks of how they went above and beyond to do something worth talking about. And he shared that he's on stages all over the country, probably about 80 times a year. And it was a truly amazing story, because with him on stage 80 times a year, that's him sharing this story. He's telling millions of people every single year about that 5-star, beyond 5-star service of Joshy and how they treated him. And so I was really taken aback by that. I thought it was truly an amazing display of how little your logo matters. It's not the logo that means anything for him. That may make their brand a little bit recognizable, but what really makes your brand recognizable are the things that people say about your brand. So that's a long way around of saying you need to do things worth talking about. You need to provide that extra level of service that people are going to say, I have to tell my friends about this because it was so amazing what Rosemary or Alyssa or whoever did, because I've never received service like that. That's truly something worth talking about. The next one, I didn't catch her last name, but it was from a woman named Chelsea and out of Arizona, and she is building her business using Snapchat. So I use Snapchat as well, but I mostly use it for fun. Nothing really truly business related. I have found that my audience that I'm speaking to isn't so much on Snapchat. But she talked about what to share, because that's such a common question in real estate. What should I be sharing? Should I be sharing listings? Should I be sharing community content? What should I share? And this quote that she had was, "It is not a live stream, it is a life stream." And I really love that as kind of a social media guru myself. Is, that's really what you should be using social for, is to showcase your life and share these elements of your life and your business with others and learn about other people's lives. I mean, this technology is truly just a tool. It is not, it's not something that is going to provide that kind of magic pill. Anita, I love your comment. Everything is so automated now that we have to take that extra step. Her clients love how hands-on she is. That's such a good point, that everything is so automated. And so when you're posting what feels like this curated content, it doesn't really connect with people. And Chelsea's point was, it really connects with people when you can make it a live stream instead of a live stream. So I love that point. So the next point was about came from a panel about a listing shortage, an inventory shortage that I think we're facing pretty much nationwide, but I know we're facing it throughout North Carolina. And it was a fascinating panel that talked about, okay, this is happening. Let's stop talking about it just happening and talk about what we can do about it. So there were actually 2 points. I'm sort of cheating and making this a 5A and a 5B in terms of takeaways. But obviously, what is fueling this listing shortage is that baby boomers are staying put. We knew that already. And it was not that millennials are staying put because they want to live in basements or because they want to do that. They made the point that millennials are staying put because they're having trouble finding entry-level housing that they can afford, which, again, we sort of knew that. So one of the solutions or I guess recommendations that one of the panelists made I thought was really interesting, especially if you work with new construction home builders, is if builders are able to start building at that price point successfully, that could be a major factor in a turnaround. And I think that's such a good point, is I'm personally a millennial, but that's such a good point that, if builders could appeal to that generation in terms of their price point and the accessibility of them buying those homes, that could really impact this inventory shortage that I think we're facing. So just a good point. If you're a home builder, maybe you want to consider that as well. And then the other point that was made is to combat this, you really need to modernize your value proposition. And what I loved about this is, think of how many times you went to a listing presentation in kind of the early 2000s and you said, I syndicate over to the portals, to Zillow and to Trulia and Realtor.com, and I'm going to be able to get your home, millions of views per month and all of those things. And Joe Rand out of New York pointed out, you need to modernize that. You need to update that. It is no longer innovative if you are having those homes on those sites. However you feel about the portals, it's no longer innovative to be online. It's an expectation. So he talks about, what other marketing are you doing? What are you doing in terms of photos? Hopefully you're not using your iPhone, but how are you providing more of a hands-on experience to buyers looking online? So I thought that was a really, really great point to use. Then there was a panel about choosing technology, not just for your brokerage, but for yourself as an individual agent, and obviously for your consumers, because a lot of this is consumer facing. And on Jimmy Macklin from Curator, he talked about, you want to focus on what works for you and for your consumers. And what he said was, if you're great at everything, you're actually good at nothing. And that's such a good point. And I really stuck with me for the rest of the day, because you really have to find the things that your consumers want and choose technology choices that are helping them and are assets to them and to your business, and streamline your process. You don't want to overcomplicate things just so that you can say, I have additional options and technology and things like that. You want to be able to streamline the process for your clients. So I think that's a fantastic point to make. So again, please comment in here, guys. I'd love to interact with you guys some more. So the next point, and again, I didn't catch this guy's name. I walked in after he had gone up on stage, but it was an agent out of LA, and he talked about sealing your bucket. And I had no idea what he was talking about for 90% of his presentation. And then he brought it all back. And he talks about, you need to think of your mind, yourself, your business, however you want to think about this, as a bucket. And we work so hard to fill up our bucket and to take in facts, take in information. And I think that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But we forget that we have a limited amount of headspace. And oftentimes, if we're working so hard to put so much information in there, we can lose really important information by filling our minds with unimportant information. So he talks about sealing your bucket off and really focusing on limited amounts of information and becoming a true expert on those things. And I'm kind of taking it a step further than he did and saying, the same works for your business. When you're talking about your business, sometimes you need to seal your bucket to have, 50 clients that you're trying to work at the same time. You need to prevent that, because you need to deliver the same level of service to all of your clients. And so when he talks about sealing off your bucket, I also think sealing off your business bucket makes sense sometimes. Know what that number is, know what that kind of cap is before you start bringing in clients, because you're going to want to make sure that you can deliver that 5-star service no matter how many clients you have. Okay, so this one is much more of a tactical thing, but I thought it was interesting. It was talking about responding to online inquiries or online leads. And with all of this talk about bots and chat bots and automated responders and all that funky stuff, it was refreshing to hear this point. And they said, try sending a text with a grammatical error. And when you do, there is almost 100% response rate. And the logic behind that is people want a real person. They know that it's a real person texting them when there's a grammatical error. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure that if we figured out how to have a chat bot before long, the chat bots are going to figure out that this works too. So it'll seem like it's a person, but still a really interesting point of, sending a text with a grammatical error and then immediately correcting that error. So obviously you're still looking professional. I think that's a really interesting point, something that you may want to consider in terms of responding to leads. And then lastly, there was a presentation about beating disruption and how can we beat disruption. I mean, Inman Connect is one of those conferences that is literally surrounded by disruptors or innovators or whatever you want to talk about. And I think that term disruption has really gotten kind of overused. But you can sit in one of those conferences and think, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that existed. Should I be using that? Should I talk to my broker about, integrating that into what we offer? And I think the kind of common theme that you see run throughout all of these sessions is that all of this technology is just technology. It's still us that matters. It's still the clients that matter. It's still the humans that matter. And so the panel was about how do you beat disruption? And one guy gets up there and he says, I beat disruption every morning by waking up and asking myself one question: how do I provide value? And I think that that's such a good question, whether it's technology, whether it's matching yourself up against the competition. I think it's such a good point because you really have to know what your value is that you're providing consumers each and every day. Whether you're combating, again, technology or your competition, you've got to wake up and be able to answer that question. A lot of people talk about elevator pitches and what's your elevator pitch? If somebody says, why should I work with you? What value can you bring to me? Can you answer that question? And I'm not sure that every real estate agent can, and that's okay. Because the ones that can will really rise to the top, and I think be a big part of what actual disruption happens and see what happens. So I'm going to look back in some of these comments because I've been chit-chatting. Yes, Brett, I love that this idea of sealing your bucket, paying your best attention to the top clients and referring out the others. You want to free your time and because you can't make more. And I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, he spoke to my heart with that one. I focus every single day on time and productivity and how I'm using my time. And I think that's such an important lesson in real estate, is that you really do have a finite amount of headspace. And I think this even goes into systemizing your processes throughout the transaction, because if you cannot systemize a lot of things that are over and over and over tasks, like they're repeat tasks with every transaction, if you can't systemize those can fill your headspace. And so just simply finding a system for your business and how you can work with clients can give you that headspace to do those things, those personal interactions and those things that really will set you above the top and will provide kind of that Ritz-Carlton service that they talk to. So either way, I thank you guys so much for joining me. I had a blast doing this. This was a good reason to go back and check my notes and pull away my major takeaways so that I can implement some stuff starting today. I think that's a big mistake that we make when we go to these conferences or even listen to these Facebook Lives or anything. We listen to these great points and we say, wow, that was such a great point. I'm going to go do something about it. And then we have lunch and we forget about it and we don't implement and we don't do. And, I think that's what makes us susceptible to disruption. And that's what makes us susceptible to getting replaced is we need to follow through and we need to really take these lessons and implement them in our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day business. So thank you guys so much for having me. It was a joy to be here. If you guys want to reach out to me, you can just comment down here. I'll keep checking back on the comments after we end, and I'd be happy to chit-chat with you guys about anything else. So thanks so much for having me, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.